Hello. Did you have a good lunch? Yay. Good. Everyone's full, hopefully not too sleepy, because we still have lots of program. So we have one more postmortem, then we have a panel, and then finally we have a session about how to work with the publisher. I guess let's get started. So give a big hand to Mikko from DevCon1.
Thank you, and hello everyone. So, my name is Mikko Vartiala, I'm from DevCon1, and I will talk about this our game. But, well, it just has been lunch, so maybe a little exercise first. So, how many of you is still awake? Please raise your hand. Okay, thank you. So, then the real question, how many of you have heard about bomb preference before? Okay, quite many. And how many of you have actually played bomb preference before? Still some, great. Thank you. And as a forward, it's a post-mortem, but we actually released bomb preference a little bit over 4 years ago. But we are still actively developing it, so it's kind of a post-mortem part 1. Maybe we will at some point do another. And I actually really loved the previous presentations, especially the Anti's thing about many hats. And as you can see, I also put it like lead this, 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 lead this. So, and for those of you who haven't had so it's an online PvP, player versus player, and iOS. And maybe we can see if we can watch a trailer from a few years back. See if it works. Well, I know almost all of you know these types of games from your childhood, or at least I hope so. Well, it's very basic. You run around in the map, drop bombs, and try to kill everyone. And it's fun. So that's it, basically. And it's very simple. But it actually has about 50 million downloads in total for Android and iOS. Mostly on Android. And well, it sounds like a big number, but unfortunately we have quite a lot of downloads from Latin America, so... Okay. Something happened. Where was I? It's almost all of them are organic downloads. We haven't really done any paid marketing at all. And some people, quite many actually have even liked our game in the Facebook, so I think that's a good sign that at least some people like it. So we've developed it for 4 years, so we've also had lots of time to make some mistakes, and hopefully you can also learn something from those. Yeah. So, but first of all, a little bit about DevCon1. We were founded in 2009 by me, Jan and Petri, and actually all of us have graduated from TUT, so naturally we are located in Hervanta. And well, you also saw the first presentation today. We have nothing to do with Universum or like any other companies. We just decided that we want to make games in Hervanta, and we actually, well, it's a long way from Hervanta to the center, so I think we don't even have quite many like connections with the other people. Of course some, but mostly we just stay there in our own offices and make games. But it's good that you have managed to have this kind of events. We will be happy to come here. We are currently 11 people. Here's some nice picture of us also drinking beer. So, we started in 2009, and first we created these beautiful Symbian games, as you can see. We also had some success in there, mostly very quick projects. And after that, well, there's this, maybe I have time. Other people didn't have so many videos, so let's check if we can. I found this random video from a random user on the YouTube. You can see this beautiful copteric game. Okay. We already had ads then, as you can see. So, yeah. Okay, after that, after the Stephen Elop's famous burning platform speech, we decided that, hey, it's time to move on from Symbian and let's also use the other platforms. And here's some of our titles from that time. I actually counted that we have a total of 25 released games for Android. Most of them done before conference. Most of them are quite quick projects also. And we already had like some successes, at least by our standards. Like a few projects had over 1 million downloads, and some had even more. But so, then our story moves on. Finally to the Bomber Friends, and we started developing it in 2014. We had several failed projects before that. We thought that they were good projects, but we didn't really get very much downloads for them, and we were running kind of out of money. And then we were thinking that what we should do next. And I was playing around with this Google's multiplayer component. There wasn't really very many multiplayer games yet in the marketplace. The multiplayer hype was just coming. And then Tero, our employee, he was like, we were talking about retro games, and he was playing some of these Bomber games still with his friends on some older console. And we thought that, hey, that's like everybody loved that game, that is there something similar in the marketplace currently? We started to see what's going on. And we did some market analysis. Well, of course, the first one is our game, but the marketplace looked like that. And we thought that, well, these other games don't look so good, but many of them still had like over 1 million downloads. And they didn't have any multiplayer, and the consoles were crappy. At least I think so. So we thought that, well, hey, there seems to be some kind of market for these games, and we can definitely make a better one. So we started developing a prototype. So we actually published our first release version in September 2014, only after 2 months of development, because like we had quite a clear vision what we were doing. Like everybody knows these kind of games, and I can show our first trailer after these 2 months. Well, the graphics are very basic, and it's same running around and bombing everyone. There is actually a course going on. And we did it by me and Tero, 2 developers, and then there was like 1.5 graphics artists in those 2 months. And the first version was only multiplayer with a single game mode. Like, it was this like minimum viable product that was also mentioned in like previous presentations. Well, it had a little bit of customizations, like hats and bodies, because we were talking with some Google guy back then, and he was like, you should have something to buy some IAPs. And we were mostly like, well, if Google likes it, so I think maybe we should also add IAPs to it, even in the first version. So we quickly added some customizations. Of course, we had ads included before that. And because, like, my background is developer, so I included some technology that we used, and I think I would talk about them for hours, but maybe that's not the case for this presentation. But if you're interested in any implementation specific things or anything, then please come ask me about that, and I will even offer you a beer, because it's always funny to tell what we have done. But just a quick word, we used Google's real-time multiplayer because mostly it was free, and there was no server costs because it was peer-to-peer. And unlike the others, in here we used CocoStudio, and that's mostly, if somebody asked that why didn't you do it with Unity, it's mostly because we had done our previous projects with CocoStudio, so we already had the existing code base and we could do this project very quickly with it. But if I would now start similar project, then I think I'm quite sure that I would use Unity. Maybe about the implementation still, that you can see that Coast in there, JSON at least, and maybe some other. That was one of the things we added when we were doing this game, and that is quite a controversial feature actually still, because we needed something that when you play the game and you die, then it's quite boring if you just have to wait that the next round starts. So we added the Coast that you can haunt the other players when you are dead, and you can give them curses. It's a kind of a emotional thing that half of the players hate them and the other half of the players like them. So I don't know if it's a good decision, but I think it's always good to raise some emotions. So maybe it's a good decision. You can try the game and tell me what you like about the Coast. Okay. So let's move on. Then I will talk a little bit about how it did. Here's some metrics from the beginning. It's installs in the left side. It starts from our release. It's weekly, just for clarity, so that if it's daily, it goes just up and down, so you can't read anything about it. But as you can see, it started quite quickly at the beginning. Actually, the first Saturday after release, it already had 13,000 downloads. And I included these different countries in here because, as I mentioned earlier, we've always, for some reason, had very good Latin American audience. And one of the questions that I've been asked is that how did you get it to raise so quickly? What did you do? And why did this Latin America especially come up? Well, to be honest, I have no idea. At the beginning, we didn't do any paid marketing, and of course we had our existing projects and we cross-promoted the game from those, but that didn't help all of our projects, so it might be that these downloads would have still come without them. And for the Latin America, as you can see from there, it actually there is Spain for comparison. We actually spiked elsewhere before that. So for some reason, 1 month after the release, then we also started rising in Latin America. And when we realized that, we tried to figure out what has caused this. And we have somebody YouTubed it, or what did it do? And we got no explanation. So I think it's just Google's algorithms were merciful to us, and we got a lot of downloads. I'll talk a little bit later about them also, but and we also didn't even have Spanish or Portuguese localizations at first, so that didn't matter that also. We only added the localizations about 2 months after the game was released, when we realized that, hey, we have lots of Portuguese players, then maybe we should also do the language for them. So, yeah. And I just marked this one milestone in here, and as you can see, we added, at the first version we only had multiplayer and some basic training against bots. So we added single player in the summer of 2015, and then that also caused quite a spike upwards. So I think that was also a good decision to add that. So of course, downloads don't mean anything, at least nowadays anymore. Everybody is in the mobile world following other metrics. So I just I tried to find our earliest metrics. We didn't really follow retention or such metrics at the beginning of the releasing this game. We only just recently started to follow them more actively. So these were the oldest that I could find for iOS. This is just some ballpark figures that I quickly tried to grab there. So it's if somebody is not familiar with retention, how many players are still playing the game at some point in the future. And mainly, we've always had quite good retention. Players keep playing the game for 2, 3, 4 days at the beginning, but then our retention declines quite sharply. Then it's quite bad at the day 30 retention. I'm not sure even where that 10% comes from. I think it's 2 to 4% is more accurate. So then, well, as we have so many Latin American players, it's quite often that we have to pay attention to it. So I put some graphs about our revenue. Well, we also have, most of our revenue is still coming from ads, but we also get something from IAPs nowadays. But in IAPs, especially the region means a lot to us. Well, as you can see, this starts from the beginning. We didn't have quite good monetization at the beginning, and we didn't have very many purchases. But then we've gotten some, and you can also see this first spike. We added single player maybe around here, so we started getting more downloads and more things to buy in the game. So we got at least some monetization to work. And well, we worked every update. We try to make the game better and make the monetization work better. So it's rising a little bit all the time. Hopefully at some point we can even make more money from IAPs than ads, but that's not the day yet. And so you can see United States and Brazil in here, just as examples. So I actually put that in there because it's quite the same, the revenue, but we have about 10 times more downloads from Brazil. So if the scale would be same, I think we would be making a lot more money, but unfortunately it isn't. So, something. Yeah. Okay, so what does 4 years of being released mean? I think there was also mention about this in the previous presentation about this long tail. This is actually our first customization pack that we released. It was in 2014 for the Halloween. Really quite fastly done customization pack with some clothes and really no functionality that affects the game. And so for the first few days, it generated about, as you can see, about 300 euros maybe a day, and then it declined sharply, and then it's done like 10 to 20 euros a day after that all the time. So at the beginning we were wondering that was it like worth the effort? It does like 10 euros a day. So we did some work for that, but does it pay it off? Well, after 4 years it's still like selling the same amount, so you can calculate it yourselves. It actually is up a little bit less than 30,000 euros. So, is that a lot or no? I don't know. Well, for us it's like this base income that a few of these, some ads and everything, then you get enough money to like pay people's wages and invest to the next project and maybe get a bigger hit next time. Okay. So, some challenges, as you can see us rattling through the slime. As I mentioned in the previous slide, we have quite a many small projects that we have released before. So I think it was quite a challenge for us transitioning from like releasing a game and forgetting it and releasing another, and just seeing how that game goes. But if it made money, good. If not, then we were moving to the next project always and just doing more projects. Now instead we are continuously updating this bomber fence, doing events for it, and if we had known at the beginning that we will be like doing this for 4 years, I think we would have made quite many things differently. At least like we pushed forward some maintenance and everything, like we can do this later, we can do this later, and then something is bothering us for 4 years and still it's in there. And I think this is also, even though we've already released the game, so we don't have that kind of feature creep, but still a little bit, not focusing enough on the big picture. It's like we are always doing the next update with little features, so it's really easy to like just look forward to the next update and we do these features, and then the next update and we do these little features, instead of just looking like a year forward or even 2 years forward, that what are the big things that we need to do to move the project to the next level. Yeah, and it's like quite easy to, well, not waste. You are always doing something, but then you like see that half a year or even a year has gone by and you haven't really like done the important things even yet. Okay. Monetization, well, it has always been quite a challenge to us, partly because of the regions and partly because it's so successful on Android instead of iOS. On iOS, I think it's like many times bigger, the IAPs per user. And well, we've always used ads, luckily, so we get some money. And then this kind of different kind of problem is that we have massive amount of players from an indie point of view, something like 2 to 3 million monthly users, and many tools are priced like this. So if we want to like all kinds of analytics tools and attribution tools that like people market to us, and we will be like, we are not really sure that at how much does this tool help us. And if we start to use it, then we are like quite invested to it, but then it could cost like anything between 5,000 to like 20,000 euros a month to use that tool. So like we can use some of the helpful tools that maybe we should. And then, like an example from this technology point of view, as I mentioned, we used this Google Multiplayer in the beginning, and it was fine for us. It worked well, kind of well, and it was free. But for example, we have this feature where you can play against friends. You create your own room, and other people can join those rooms. Well, Google Multiplayer didn't have any kind of matchmaking, so we had to implement this feature with our own server. And everything worked well for a while, but then like we have to keep maintenance on our servers, we have to buy those servers, and of course, then the first holiday season came, Christmas, and we get a lot of new users and more people playing the best friends, and of course we hit performance problems on the servers on the holidays when nobody's doing anything, and of course the servers then crashed. Well, that's what you get for like doing something new yourself. And we of course fixed that. That was no problem. It was like quite simple feature by itself. But if you do these kind of features yourself, like everything adds up, then you have your own servers you need to update, blah 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 blah. And instead of like using something that has already this feature, then you can just do it more quickly. And here is an example of a review I got from iOS. All hackers too many ads and no updates. It's good that people complain. You know that they are invested enough in the game, so they haven't just stopped playing, but they have instead complained. I think that's a good thing. The game had been released like 2.5 years ago. Then, like last year, we started to get like even more hackers, because at the beginning the game was peer-to-peer, so there was no server validation. And people like started to notice it, that hey, we can do like anything in here we want, and the game still works. So last year we started to get even more hackers and even more complaining it. So we need to do something for that. And so we started to implement our own server at that point, and hopefully the hackers have now been like fixed and we kick them automatically. And so, but we actually moved to, if somebody knows, to use Photon Enterprise instead of the Google Multiplayer. So some things that we did right, at least I hope so. And so the timing and segment analysis when we started the project, I think like that's one of the most important things, that you do the game for an audience. I think we succeeded in that one. We got those downloads quite quickly at the beginning. And like during the initial development phase, we did this minimum viable product, but we focused on really polishing the consoles and having a good core gameplay. And meaning in this case, because it's a multiplayer game, that you can play it like even with quite a bad connection and high ping, and it still works like quite well. And then adding the single player, we currently have 440 levels. And always when we release some new levels, then after a week, there's somebody yelling, please make more levels. Well, we can satisfy everyone, but I think that's like for a normal player, there's quite a lot of playing. And somebody might tell that, hey, you already have a multiplayer, why do you need a single player? There's like endless playing in the multiplayer. But I think that in our case at least, they just complement each other. When you like get bored to the other one, then you can play the other one, and so on. So our Facebook page for Bomber Friends has gotten quite many likes. One of the things that I'd like to mention from there is these share your character competitions that we've had. I think they've been quite successful. I don't think that we have gotten some more downloads from there. That's a good thing, of course, without any marketing money to get more downloads. But they've also like invigorated the existing players because they can like share their character to the competition and they can they bought more clothes because they want to show off this nice character to everyone else. And of course, you need luck. And especially in this case, I think from Google's algorithms that recommend the game to other players. But of course, only luck is not enough. In our case, what we have had from the beginning is good metrics. If somebody comes to our Google Play page, then quite a high percentage of those players also installs the game. And quite a high percentage of the people who install the game also keep the game installed for quite many days, that they don't just check what is this and then uninstall. Of course, Google doesn't tell exactly what their algorithms are or how they work, but I think those also mean something. So, for the technology people, I'll also just show what are we currently using. So we are using Logo Studio X with C++ and Spine for the animations. Now we are using, instead of the Google multiplayer, this Photon Enterprise, and we're using Photon plugins for the server validation. We have the game logic running as Photon plugins. We are using Iron Source ads for mediation. We are using about 5 to 7 different ad networks. And then there's just some other tools mentioned in there, and I probably also forgot some from there. So was there anything else? Yeah, so future plans for this project and otherwise. Well, we are still updating it, and we actually did some huge multiplayer updates just recently. We are trying to improve our long-term retention. As I mentioned, it's quite bad in the day 30 and so on. We are transitioning, at the beginning of the project, we only saved the game state locally, so everybody could just, if I want all items, I can just download some hack from the internet and I got all the customization stuff. But it's I don't know how much it exactly affects, but it's quite demotivating for some new player to come into the game and they need to buy stuff when they can see that there is some hacker with all the stuff already. So I think that demotivates people from purchasing new stuff. And if somebody has heard, there was this kind of Playmageddon in the summer. Google's algorithms were updated and they affected all the games downloads in the Play Store. And before we had quite stable downloads, but after that we also have had ups and downs really hard. Sometimes it's really low, and then we have some new record downloads. And so we are still seeing about where it will go. And here's these two possible alternative futures maybe. Will it be Death and Decay and no downloads, or will we rise and create new game download status? And of course we haven't done like much marketing. All the downloads are organic, so I think definitely we need to pay more focus to analytics and marketing in the future. And of course, new projects also at some point. Well, we have had some small projects, car games and such, but trying to do our next big hit also. Okay, thank you. Yeah. I think I forgot to mention about half of the things, but I think my time's up already, so.
Well, actually, you would have had more time, but I think it's nice that you can wrap it up and keep it coherent, not rönsyillä. What is that? Yes, I hope everyone's like, we're a bit sluggish after the lunch, but let's see if you have some questions in your brain. Jari has a question.
Hi, thank you. You said that you have quite good numbers from the beginning, like download, I mean like store page conversion, for example.
I don't know about the store page conversion, but I think so, because like it hasn't, when Google released it, the stats, then after that it's always been quite good.
Okay, have you done any experiments on trying to improve them?
Yeah, some, but it doesn't affect so much. So, yeah.
Okay, I have a quick other question. You said that you've also done market research before you started the project, and have you done afterwards? Because I know that, for example, Future Play has the similar kind of, I don't know what it is, Bomb Away or what is it? The same kind of game. And have you looked at those, like competition that has come afterwards, and kind of implement something from them, or 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 from them.
Well, when we are mostly like trying to play that monetize well and try to like copy things from them, that's so good we could make the monetization work better.
More questions? Are we all brain dead for a while? Oh, good man. Please ask.
Thanks for the presentation. Like you mentioned, the ads have been like a stable income for you.
Yeah.
Like, what's the approximate ratio between ads and IFPs you have?
Well, nowadays, like maybe something like 60 to 70% from ads and 10 rest from my IAPs. I think that's like the ballpark figure. But of course, in the beginning of the project, we didn't really have any IAPs, so then it was like 100%.
More? Yes? No?
Well, I can like, if you are speaking about failures, I can like show one slide. Funny detail from here. This is site from Google's. It doesn't even show all the crashes, I think. This was quite a funny moment. We actually, somebody enabled a thing in our dashboard that wasn't really supported yet, and like all the previous versions of the game crashed. So luckily we noticed it quite quickly and fixed, just switched it off in the dashboard. Yeah, but things can happen.
All right. Well, did you have more?
No.
I'm not sure if you're done or not. Am I interrupting?
Yeah.
Okay. I think it's fine to have another break. like we have 20 minutes until the panel should start. Maybe, yeah, I don't know, should we start a bit earlier? What do my fellow organizers think? Or should we just have let's have a break, 20-minute break. So go and get coffee and then come back like a bit before 3, then we have the panel, and give it one more time for me. all here. So we move forward to the panel, the token panel of any conference, any self-respecting conference. There has to be a panel discussion. Let's hope that this one is interesting. And personally, my goal as a moderator for this panel is to get everyone to discuss. So we try to keep the actual panel part very concise, and let's discuss with everyone here about the issues that we have. But then I hope everyone to participate, and let's have at least 10 minutes of proper discussion with the audience as well, because we are all part of the game development here. So let's discuss how to collaborate. And yeah, the panel is same goals, different agendas. So how can we work together better? There are some examples in the past. For example, the Monte Games project that was mentioned in a couple of the previous ones. That is a good example of one way of enhancing collaboration here. But I think we haven't seen the top, the height of where we could go with this collaboration. So we've invited here people to discuss about this possible, what can we do together? And we have here Olli Satamaa from the University of Tampere to represent researchers and this academic side of games, hopefully. And then we have Sointu from Business Tampere to discuss from the startup point of view and facilitator and maybe even kind of sponsor point of view, how could the city of Tampere and this organization help us collaborate. Then we have Toni from TAMK, so representing the student and teacher point of view, the educational side, so how do students see the game industry, how do teachers see it. And then we have our very own Antti, representing game developers, talking about what are game developers' needs and worries in this whole situation. Mainly worries, hopefully not. So yeah, let's. I introduced your names, but I think you should start by just telling shortly about what do you do in the kind of the games ecosystem, and what does your organization do, and what type of part it plays in this Tampere game ecosystem. Maybe Olli can start.
That was a lot of questions. Okay, so my name is Olli Satamaa. I'm a professor of interactive media and game studies at the University of Tampere. I'm the head of a master's program in internet and game studies, only purely game studies next year. So education-wise, we're educating game experts, meaning that people who end up working in studios, but also in different kinds of institutions, in society, meaning libraries, museums, teachers, all kinds of people who are educated in games. Then I'm also the kind of Tampere research lead at the newly formed Center of Excellence in Game Culture Studies, which is an 8-year project funded by the Academy of Finland. And there we're kind of looking, we're looking at a lot of things, but some of the things that might interest you, we're actually also looking critically into themes related to game production and the kind of global production networks, and how they are then interfacing with the local actors. I guess that was enough.
That's enough. No, that's good. Sorry.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Sointu from Business Tampere, and the goal of Business Tampere as a regional development agency is basically support companies to grow. And my job is to mainly focus on startups and developing the whole startup ecosystem in Tampere. And that means providing you guys the best services that you need, access to investors, mentors, coaches, getting more beer to Manse Games events, stuff like that.
Oh, it's not on. Oh, put it on.
Okay, now it's on.
Oh,
Yeah, it was muted. Okay, hi everybody, my name is Tony. I'm the head of the Tampere Games Academy Studios. Okay, that was all. Anyways, our job is to educate people, and I see a lot of familiar faces here. Our students and our former students, but that's really cool and really nice. I also see a lot of lost souls who never graduated.
You know who you are.
Yeah. Sorry, I was me, but that is something I wanted to say. So thanks for you all coming. But yeah, our job is to educate people, and we have 40 students per year, and half of them are artists, and half of them are programmers. So that is what we do in this Tampere Games ecosystem.
Thank you. Hey, Antti Galen, Traplight. I work in a company in Tampere games development scene, and not sure if I have anything else to do in that regard, but I do my best to be available for and share all the information that I possibly can with people, either inside the game development scene or trying to get in, or desperately get out. But I try and communicate.
What part, from your perspective, does Traplight play in this ecosystem? Just the basic developer part.
Yeah.
Making games.
Well, developers offer what's harjoittelupaikka in English?
Internships.
Internships, yeah, for students. So I've been collaborating with Tony quite a bit. We do lesson-based. We have events at the office, for example. We try and sponsor. It does be a part of, like, just, you know, keep it alive, so to speak. I guess.
All right.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think that's good. You did well. Good job. Yeah, Sointo actually went already a bit into the goals. Well, you went into the general goals of Business Tampere, but I would like to ask everyone, like, what are your goals currently regarding specifically the Tampere Games ecosystem? So maybe Sointo, you can start, because you already kind of discussed the goals of your...
Sure. I think based on my experience with working with startups for the past 10 years, I've seen that there hasn't been that much gaming-related activities supported by the city or Business Tampere, and I think the major goal here is now for me to really ramp up things, provide you something that makes a huge impact. So I think that's the major goal. To
maybe you start here to get to know all the players of the scene. And
yeah. I mean, my background is I said, I work with startups a lot. In startups, I have one of my own as well, but I don't know the gaming industry enough to like start building up the services. So I want to learn from you guys. What are your biggest challenges? What do you guys need so that we can build the system up?
All right, that sounds very cool. What about Olli, maybe?
I want to hear what Tony says first.
Okay, so Tony, your goals regarding the Tampere game ecosystem, or Tampere game, like games in general.
Okay. So as said, we want to educate people for the ecosystem. That is like the main thing we do. And we want happenings, because as said, there's like plenty of our students in here. Thanks for Traplight for organizing this one. So
Among others.
Among others, yeah, of course, there's among others. But the goal for the ecosystem, we are needing, as you said, we need like something to happen, because after Manse Games there's basically nothing. Almost, if you go to Turku, you go to Jyväskylä, Oulu, Helsinki, whatever else places in Finland or like big cities, they have a hub, they have happenings, they have incubators, they have everything. So we are kind of missing that. That is what we want to create together, or want to help to create together.
And I guess your ultimate goal is to, of course, get jobs for the students that graduate.
Yeah.
You want them
Glad
to...
you said graduation because
yeah, no jobs for those who don't graduate.
Yeah, of course, we want to elevate as much people as needed, not too many, not too few, and luckily the other companies, not only gaming companies, are nowadays using game engines. So there's like 25% of our people are actually working, not in game industry, but in organizations like Cargotec, Valmet, huge industrial places that are using game engines.
All right. No, Olli?
Okay, I can go next. As Tony is responsible for a line, it's a kind of game development program. And our program is a bit different. And what I've been thinking lately, talking to local studios and people working in them, is that we actually have quite a lot of kind of positions related to like game analytics, like community management, live ops was mentioned today, that I don't know if current kind of education system actually kind of addresses that well. And that's something that we actually could develop. It's also like the need for education kind of doesn't stop when you enter, when you get your first kind of entry-level recruitment in a company. It's kind of clear that we're kind of, we need to learn kind of probably like every day. And therefore also like kind of Finnish education system is pretty much kind of degree focused. Graduation mentioned several times already here. What about what are the kind of forms that we could kind of collaboratively build to kind of get a bit more for those people who are busy working on their projects? Research-wise, there's a bit of a kind of different pace for our kind of basic research and the kind of research, the kind of R&D assignments needed in companies. But I mean, in the past, we've kind of pretty successfully conducted quite a few TechES-funded projects with companies, game companies, but other companies as well. And that's also something we probably should explore a bit more, that what, for example, Business Finland these days has to offer. How, if we got a few companies interested in certain topics, what we then could do together.
I think that was a good point that you mentioned, that the learning should not stop when you graduate or leave school, because that's exactly what game developers are doing. Like, you have to keep learning. The industry changes so fast that, you know, just if you just stick with what you studied or what you learned a couple of years ago, it's kind of already outdated. So you have to keep kind of constantly.
Yeah, we call it life sentence in learning. It's a trademark for. So yeah, that's the term.
It's a good life sentence.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah. Goals, developer goals.
Yeah, kind of a hard question. I think what this panel is probably what I like. The beginning that I want to say is like educational side, the city of Tampere, all the developers, the researchers, everybody is like around the same table discussing about what they actually need. Like they pop up on occasion and they vary, and the learning never stops, all the needs never stop kind of evolving. So I think these kind of conversations are just what, you know, is the good basis for.
What do you think are the biggest needs, or well, just needs currently for developers in the Tampere area? Or
it probably depends on the developer. I'm not sure how to answer that question now. So
well, you can say from Traplight point of view. Maybe.
So what do we need?
Yeah, what is the need?
We need people to graduate from school. Actually, we don't need, we don't need people to graduate from school.
We just need good people,
We just
right?
need talented people
Yes.
to work for us.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're kind of
But
not in the same boat.
listen to Tony and Olli, it's still good to graduate. Yeah, I think, well, yeah, we can then kind of move on to the challenges. Well, Antti started, I think, nicely with the need of what developers really need for studios is talented people. What are the, Antti, maybe if you can continue straight away, what challenges currently are there any challenges currently for developers to get those talented people, or what are those possible challenges?
You can tell I'm super prepared for this panel. So what are the challenges?
Yes.
These
you
questions
not read
are very...
I sent you the questions. Everyone else is prepared.
Everybody else should probably answer.
They read the questions and prepared and
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
If we're talking about workforce or young talent, so to speak, we've had million discussions with Tony, for example, and we collaborate quite a bit of like, you have a lot of developers coming and teaching actual aspects of like what game development is about. There's a lot of let's say stuff to go with software, for example. That's really important to know before you go into a game company. It's good to know what are the industry standard tools that you use. For example, there's also stuff to do with I don't know, professional attitude, just kind of getting to know what it's like what it is to be a game developer in the Tampere scene. But some things you just can't teach in school, and I think that is like having people connected, like seeing students and developers, for example, work together and just kind of share knowledge, give, like kind of inspire each other in that sense, to see like, just collaborate from day one. I think that's really important, and that's, I'm not sure how many, like I try and like kind of get myself involved in that, but I'm not sure how many developers actually think and feel that that is a necessity for, just this ecosystem to kind of start to grow.
If I caught some piece of gold there, what you said is that the problem,
wow.
there's a problem that that studios or developers are maybe expecting students to come with a certain set of skills and understanding that is needed to start straight away to work on a project. Yeah. And the problem is that you cannot really get those skills before you have worked on a project in a studio. So there's a bit of a gap between what can be taught in school and what is kind of like expected.
No, I'm not sure if that gap can ever be kind of given, like, I'm not sure if that can be fixed. But I think a certain kind of level of proficiency is required for people to hop in. And that's the best place for any student or any kind of employee to learn, is to go to a project and start learning the actual trade by doing, because every project is different. Every team is different. And, as we said before, things change all the time, so you just need to keep on learning and start as fast as you possibly can to do that. So.
Yeah, but I think it's good to recognize that there might be this sort of gap, and it's one of the challenges, at least, that we will dig deeper into and maybe discuss some, if we have any solutions together. What about other players here? Challenges regarding your goals that you want to achieve. What is kind of hindering you at the moment? Tony, maybe you have something in mind. You want students to study and hopefully get jobs. Is there something that is hindering this goal?
Actually, we are doing a survey right now, and we try to figure out what are the needs from the game industry point of view. It's really hard to do. I think there will be a gap. Anyways, with what we try to do our best, Antti is helping, and other people from the industry are trying to help us to figure out what we should do in the education. But the question, what is the...
The question was that you have goals regarding the Tampere game ecosystem.
Yes.
Is there some challenges or problems that are hindering you, like that you are not achieving those goals the best you could at the moment for some reason?
Oh, okay. One thing is that our students are going to work after second year. I don't know, this sounds a pain in the ass. I know I have a lot of haters after this. But anyways, it's really nice that they have workplaces, but that is a challenge for us because our funding is depending on the people to graduate. And we can't do anything about it. That's the reason I'm shouting about it, even if I don't want to shout it.
Quick note, maybe we should have not employer guys, but make them graduate but still work for us.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds nice.
Force them to graduate.
I'm using a trick. There's a lot of my students right now, but if you graduate on time, I will buy one game for you. So I've been, yeah, I don't tell anybody on our organization because it's frightening people. But I don't, yeah, I bought 27 games.
You know that this is being live streamed right now, so just tell your organization this.
Is that the camera?
Yeah. You were also sent notes about the live stream, so.
It's Saturday.
Well.
It's Saturday and no one in our organization is working.
All right. Maybe we go with the challenges still. So, Olli, you have.
Yeah, I mean, adding to that, I guess like Tony mentioned, funding, and of course that's for a higher education institution. That's always the thing, that the lack of kind of sustainable funding, the lack of kind of long-lasting kind of agenda, long-lasting funding. We have in our research group right now, we have, I don't know, more than 15 people. 3 of them are have a kind of semi-permanent contract. So that kind of tells about. So I mean, I kind of have a feeling that we've been kind of running a kind of an academic startup for I don't know, more than 15 years now, and I'm kind of getting old. That I'd like to get. But also, I guess that kind of is connected to what we're talking about, in a sense that there's also, for example, in our master's program, we have quite a lot of kind of international students. So what we can provide them to stay here after they've graduated. What is the kind of the shared kind of Tampere ecosystem agenda that we can communicate to them? I mean, clarifying that would be a kind of actually a pretty important goal.
Right.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, the challenge is resources, obviously. Me and my team started only in August, so we're like a relatively new team building the whole ecosystem, so we don't have a dedicated person to for the gaming industry specifically, so we're dealing with all the industries. I think that's a huge challenge at the moment, but hopefully we can correct that in next year. And obviously I see a lot of when we're talking about the public sector in Tampere and all the players, there's a lot of, everybody's focused on their own agenda and not so much collaboration. So that's why events like these are really important for us to kickstart, to do stuff together, because that's the only way we can actually do some impact, I think.
Good point. Well, maybe you can continue. You have now this new team, and you have goals to kind of bring life to the startup scene and maybe help, hopefully also the gaming industry here. So how do you see, in your dream scenario, how would the Tampere gaming scene look in 2 to 3 years after you've had time to work on it on your part?
Yeah, we have ambitious goals, obviously.
Right.
Hopefully we'll have an own incubator accelerator around the industry, but more getting the international connections, investors over, getting more startups, getting more talents. But yeah, just building the ecosystem from ground up. And I think we could do even a better job than Helsinki does now. Because we do have the connections, we do have the talents, we do have the companies, so why not aiming high, and with collaboration I'm sure we can do that.
Yeah, I like that we always have to mention Helsinki a bit as a kind of a big brother to Tampere in the gaming industry, but what I think is that Tampere represents in a very diamond form the kind of the spirit of Finnish game industry, the way we are kind of all friends and we share very openly and stuff like that. So I see the ground here is very fertile for what you are hoping to achieve, that we could actually be better than Helsinki in this, and it's totally doable. What about Tony? What about your dream scenario? How would the Tampere gaming scene look in 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, I wanted like a common place, like a hub for all us to get together and talk together. I want to see some incubators. We don't have like incubator programs, that is sad, because there's a lot of good teams from our school that could easily put up a new company if they had a place, some money, and of course some advice or mentoring from the other companies. So that's kind of my dream, that, you know, maybe the companies can hire our teams, not just individual people, but just hire a whole team. Because some of the teams that they have been doing 4 games together. It's quite much, and they are all released, so they are kind of ready to do whatever the company wants them to do. Almost ready to do. Yeah, of course you need to learn. But that's my dream. I want to see like a common space with happenings, free beer also. Yeah. So that's kind of my dream. And yes, of course, I will not talk about graduation anymore, but getting jobs for our students, that everybody is employed.
In Tampere. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Of course, you can go elsewhere, but if you do, you can never come back. You will be shunned. No, just kidding.
There's not much to add to that. I mean, the hub is a very good starting point where we could actually present what collaboration, what Svante mentioned, is like a prerequisite for it. So like any place where we could just get together and kind of present these problems that we had, and always just kind of tackle, kind of like start solving the problem together, and like just have people appointed to certain tasks and have like just the collaboration that it needs, whatever the problems are. So I think a hub for collaboration is a good starting point.
Mm-hmm. I would probably add what you 3 said, that it would also be very good for the system. What the incubators and common hubs are aiming for is, of course, the growth and success, and that would bring more the jobs for the students and more money for the beer, for the events, and all that. So yeah, from developer point of view, I think that's also, it would be great to see more Tampere-based companies to get out there in the world. What about Olli? Your dream scenario?
Well, I mean, that would be a long one, but I mean, okay, I'm going to actually stick to just like one very concrete point. I think we're kind of moving towards that section in your questions. This is because, I mean, I kind of have this feeling that there's actually a lot of stuff happening related to games, a lot of events and all that kind of stuff, like even on a monthly basis. And I just feel like it's kind of scattered, and I'm not aware of things happening. So what about having just like a kind of a joint calendar, just like a kind of point where you can check out, so, okay, these interesting things happen, and people putting together this hub where I could maybe communicate with these people. Yeah, that would be very useful. That would be like super useful also to point out our students to kind of some sort of shared kind of yeah.
I think we're going to the possible solutions next, but can you paint some sort of picture? What would you hope to see in Tampere in like 2 or 3 years in the game industry?
I guess I'm kind of repeating myself here, but I mean, yeah, more sustainable, more even more international. I hope. Also, maybe also a bit about like kind of trying to kind of understand what are all the different kind of areas where games are good for. Because I mean, as Tony mentioned already now, we get students who go to other fields, and there many of the things coming from the game dev area are like super useful. But I mean. What are the kind of what are games good for? It's not only that getting. I think it's kind of good to have money for beer, but I mean sometimes also think about that where does it lead at, and what are the kind of different areas in society where we can use games? It's not only that, I mean, we're selling this kind of snacks, but I mean, there should be a bit more kind of thinking towards that end as well. And I mean, that's obviously that's not for everyone. But I mean, yeah, having a bit more of that.
Mm-hmm. I want to pick on the international, a bit more international. You said, hopefully in the coming years. Is there? Do you guys have some collective ideas that come to your mind? How can we make Tampere more international? I mean, that's not something that is necessarily the first thing that comes to mind about Tampere Gaming Hub at the moment. But as Olli said, it would be nice to have more international, and especially you said that the international students, how to get them to stay once they come here. But do you have any comments on the international part, or any ideas?
I think for Tampere, this is an amazing place to live, obviously. We have all the back office support, everything you name it, great place to live. So the talent attraction is one key part, and Business Tampere is really focused on that for the next few years. So hopefully we can somehow support that and getting international talents in. But obviously getting the connections to international investors, once we get those coming here to the city and they will see the startups and companies, that's going to boost the entire, I think, community a bit. And we do have the connections, so now we just need to start working.
Mm-hmm. Do you have something for that?
Yeah, maybe the earlier things that we discussed or what I mentioned were very kind of local and regarding workforce for the game companies and then students in regards to that. But when it comes to being international, I think what game companies, any game company that became international made a hit. So we mentioned Colossal Order or Traplight or Copla. Everybody has international talent, but that's because they raise their quality so high, they hit their market so well that they can actually, first of all, afford the international talent, and they have need for that. Even raising the bar, just going up and onwards, that's how you become international as a developer. So maybe that's the only point I'm making as a developer.
All right. That was kind of just a sidetrack, but well, now that you've heard each other's kind of these goals and challenges that are related to those goals, was there something that immediately came to your mind that, hey, I have some ideas how we could solve your problems, or anything like that? I mean, of course it's a big question, but if you heard something from someone and it came to your mind that, hey, actually we could help with that, was there anything like that?
I mean, I see a lot of cooperation that we could do, getting the companies and talents work together with some different projects or whatnot, who knows. Getting more events and international speakers to the events. There's a lot of stuff that we can do. And I'm going to use this opportunity to actually publicly to the camera and to the audience and to the moderator challenge all of you guys to join Business Tampere and to come up with a genius project plan this year so that we have can do something really concrete stuff together to next year. We don't want to do any projects ourselves because you guys know the industry better. We can facilitate, provide the funding and other stuff, but we need you guys to actually come up with a plan.
All right.
So challenged, thrown to your way. Will you accept?
Okay, so Sointu drops the mic, and now you three have to figure out how to fix all our problems now. Just kidding. Olli, any ideas?
Now that you think of the right answer, talk about. We'll actually get back to that. Because there's most of the people probably know there's a huge kind of university merger going on right now. 1st of January there will be only one university in Tampere, and of course we've been sitting in same committees with Toni and thinking about that. How do we kind of operate this. And I think there's still a bit of work there, kind of thinking through the kind of division of labor. But at least we're talking to each other much more than we probably did in the past few years. So I'm kind of optimistic about that there will be kind of interesting things happen in that area. But then there's also I don't know, we just very quickly before the panel already talked about this kind of different kinds of, let's say, dissertation projects, for example, that we could offer. We could just build a kind of simple model where we could collaborate a bit more, because I mean there are kind of every now and then there are certain people who go to studios or get an assignment from a studio to make a master's thesis or stuff like that. We could do that more systematically, but it's not only that okay, we have a kind of acute problem here. We need someone to solve this, and we don't have the time. That's the kind of the traditional way. I believe that these days is also the kind of one of the luxuries. I don't know if academics have that anymore, but I mean sometimes students I believe probably may have is time, that they can actually kind of use time focusing on certain kind of topics, and then also kind of provide new ideas to the students. So I mean that's something we should explore a bit more.
What do you think would be needed to make that happen more systematically, this collaboration between students, researchers, and game companies with their problems, or you with your ideas, how you could maybe enhance or help the companies? What do you think? What was needed for that system? We actually have someone who will be working on this kind of early next year at our place to kind of figure out how that would kind of delve into our model. But then it only needs more like collaboration, kind of communicating the ideas. So maybe a hub that would kind of somehow direct the communication through one spot or something. Sounds like we would need that. Maybe.
Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, maybe. It has come up, I think everyone has said the hub or some sort of collaborative, I don't know if it's a physical space, but something that would kind of just direct the communication. What other ideas did you come up with? Anything that when you heard the problems or challenges that people face? For example, the challenge of the gap between the students and the companies. Antti, you already went a bit into the ideas that how could you collaborate more?
With Tony.
With Tony or some other?
Everyone. If you're talking about the gap between the professional level of the students and then the requirements of any game company.
Yes.
I'm not sure if there's a problem there, but I'm not sure if every game company in Tampere understands that they have a massive surplus of students looking for places to do their internship in. Is every game company in Tampere in your lists, and do you communicate with every Tampere game company with your the amount of people that you actually can offer to the system, sacrifice to the gods, so to speak. But I don't see a real problem there. I just see maybe just more crystallized communication is needed. And I can only speak for myself, but as time brought in the question, maybe there's a lot we could do. Maybe we haven't really talked to everyone. What do you think?
Yeah, you're actually right. We have been really bad at marketing ourselves. The students always, just for 100 years. We are trying to figure out how to do that better. We're trying to figure out how to communicate with the industry better. So there's a lot of things to do. And I'm a man of action. I don't do any plans. I just stick my head whatever places I can. And if something's found, I'm like, yeah. Or if I do something wrong, I say, sorry, I didn't know. But anyways, as a man of action, I want to be a man who invites all the people on the same table to have a discussion. So that is something being an offer. We have the premises, yeah.
I think well, just one thing came to my mind about what everyone's saying is the more, like, we need enhanced communication, and the problem is that there hasn't been maybe anyone who is dedicated to actually keep the communication flowing between different parties. So that's maybe one thing that maybe Business Tampere can help facilitate or help to sponsor or something like that, or at least get the discussion going. But I think actually at this point, I would point
If I send you, or if we kind of just set up an online questionnaire, themes that you'd be interested in researching. Yeah, it's difficult. It doesn't probably work that way. But and it's also like it's kind of clear that many of these things kind of take time. That's kind of that would be my answer also to the question about how get more international. That's what's kind of happening with our research kind of right now, or has been happening in the past few years. But I mean, over a decade, we've been kind of building that momentum and building that kind of fame and experience.
One thing came to my mind from this discussion is that like the problem was that the game companies might have problems or ideas of ideas for problems, basically, but they have no forum or place to actually present them, and then the researchers and students don't get those problems. So it kind of sounds to sounds to meta 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 sounds to
service to bridge the gap and also show who's employable. In Finland, abroad, for artists, for programmers, and Discord servers, Facebook groups, for open job positions and everything. But why not create a localized kind of service for everyone to apply and seek applicable workers?
a digital hub, you say?
Yeah. So who's going to build this hub?
No. But my basic idea was that Facebook was invented to create a social network for a specific school or university in the US. So a similar thing where not just Facebook group, which is kind of lackadaisical approach, but an actual website which collects data from where are you now, who are you, different companies you could apply to that service and everything.
Yeah. The only question there was why not. I completely agree. That's a really great idea. Why not? We should probably put that on the table. How can we have people, for example, talking about whatever perspective we can add, academia into that mix and have just a digital hub, like you put it, or just lists of who is doing what at the moment, and just a search base. It's a really good idea, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
There was also more question. Yes.
So the games industry constantly needs new blood to throw into the crunch machine, but
that's brutally sad.
Yeah, that's it's kind of, but yeah. So we need new people in that. But sometimes there are all these gatherings. The game industry is a lot about who you know, and but there are also lots of talented people with maybe not the social skills to show up on these events like a GDA or here to communicate with other people. They might not like beer, they don't like, really, that's my phone falling out of my pocket, but they don't like beer, like student, that's like a unicorn, but these people actually exist. So how would you help these people show off their work and maybe get them more into the light, bring them up to the light,
so they can
show their
very good question.
Show their work.
Okay, one of the things we do is we kindly push people to publish all the coursework they are doing in the school. So that's creating a portfolio. But I understand the problem or the challenge that we have people who don't want to go to each event. They are not drinking beer. They are not even talking few words in 3 years. Yeah, I try to use telepathy, but I'm kind of sucking with that. But anyway, that's the way we try to do. So publish all your games, get feedback. So you have a portfolio when you're applying. You can go in the company, don't say anything, just give your portfolio. That may be helpful.
Yeah, I'm just checking the time. You can answer. Sorry.
Okay. So yeah, your point is really good. There are talented people who don't necessarily or you need a certain amount of social skills to be able to work in a team that's creative, and you need some of that, but like that doesn't necessarily mean that you like beer or that you like places with a lot of people in them where you need to kind of promote yourself, and kind of that's way out of some people's comfort zone. What I tell these people, and that's probably like if this like touches base, like just create a portfolio that's online, like really have an easy accessible, like your stuff. If you're a programmer, have your code online, just show it to people and like throw that around, because a good like quality worker or good quality talent is always needed, even if they don't have the social skills to promote themselves in a public space. Like, and it's very important that those people get their voices heard, and digitally, without their faces attached to it, it's the best way. So just send an email to any company you see and have your portfolio easily accessible, and that's it. Like, you don't need, like, you'll be invited to the office after that if your work is really good. Like, there's no doubt about that.
And I would like to add to that what something that Traplight is now trying to do is these very small scale events at our office where students can come and show their portfolio and get
I've noticed there that it's like, even from the investment perspective, gaming is such a kind of, you really need to know what you're looking for, and the investors are really highly like educated in this field. And the higher we have kind of climbed the ladder in the investments, the more knowledge and more connections we have gotten. So I think you need to talk to us developers and find the right people to.
Yeah, like investment workshops or something could also like to help the starting companies or startups or students even to figure out how to approach.
I think that sounds really good to kind of start thinking about some place where everybody could get together.
Yes. Yes, I'm so happy that there were so many hands still. Like, yeah, but we are really running out of time, and there's still Marina's amazing presentation coming, so we need to prepare for that. So I'm going to ask the final notes. So based on this very short initial discussion, which will of course continue into the future, happily, merrily, ever after, right? What do you promise, or what can you promise right now to do for the gaming hub in Tampere to make this thing start rolling?
Yeah, you mentioned the hub already, so I want to see that happen. I'll be readily available for anybody's kind of approach of how we're going to start doing that. I'll be available. I'll be available to all the students as well, so if anyone needs any feedback or anything that you might think that, I have an insight to offer you guys, whatever it is, just shoot an email. Add me on Facebook, like really just come and talk to me, and that's it. And I think that's what we all need to do, so just open up that, just be available. I think that's what is my point of view.
Yeah, and I think you can promise for Traplight as well that our doors are open, so just give us a call or email. We'll be, as Jari said, we have lots of And all the other companies have accumulated lots of knowledge, so don't be afraid to come and ask help. We love to do, 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 we love to do.
Yeah, too. Yeah.
That's a t-shirt right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, do it.
Can invite people because I happen to know the educators and I know a bunch of game industry people. Not everybody, but I think I have a lot of connections, so I can invite people to participate in this. And one thing, we need a guy or girl to actually do this like a whole day job. We had Suvi Latva, we had Antti after Suvi, thanks for you Antti and thanks for Suvi, this, but you need people. You need one people, two people, group of people who is actually doing this all the time.
So what was your promise?
Invite people to collaborate
Okay,
in our
great.
place.
Amazing. So what do you promise?
Hi, Antti. Nice to see you. Yeah, I kind of threw in the public challenge already. Nobody accepted yet. But yeah, I promised to really work hard on building and like starting the new services, maybe getting the digital hub going next year, getting some dedicated person for you guys to actually contact whenever you need something, get the events going, like simple stuff, getting a joint Slack channel. I don't know if you guys have that.
There is a Slack channel, but it could be enhanced and like brought to life
Yeah.
again and stuff like that.
So I think this is the beginning for the cooperation, and we just go from here.
Good, amazing. Olli, what do
Okay,
you
yeah,
promise?
I mean, continuing to that is, I guess it's that if we kind of come up with any kind of hub, then have a kind of diverse enough board for it, so all the different opinions are kind of covered there. Then like two things that well, I can promise because we're doing them anyways. But I mean, the first thing is that we're planning to have a national game developer survey happening early next year. We're collaborating with Neo Games and a few others, and we definitely need a good coverage from the Tampere region. So I will be kind of. We hope to communicate this to, because I mean,
So you promise.
Yeah,
I promise.
yeah, exactly. We'll find ways. But I mean, the thing is that will also kind of provide some kind of up-to-date info about what's going on. Because I mean, we all have this kind of gut feeling, kind of ideas about what's the difference between Tampere and Helsinki or some other places. So we actually could get some kind of solid. Studied knowledge about that.
What's the second promise?
The second promise is that Mr. Ilkka Paananen is actually or received a honorary doctorate earlier this year at the University of Tampere. So he's the CEO of Supercell, as you all know. He will be visiting us sometime early next year, and we will be kind of organizing I don't know, half-a-day event around that. And we're thinking about that would be like, to us, would be a good venue to kind of introduce some of our kind of recent research for a larger audience, but there might be room for some kind of local developers to kind of to point certain things further. So I mean, yeah.
All right. All these promises, I really like the sound of them.
What do you promise?
I promise as Antti did, to be available. So if you need any tips on marketing or community or influencer stuff or PR, just contact me. I promise to help. And I also promise to try to keep these guys to their promises. So if nothing happens, I'm gonna call them immediately and like, what's happening? Like, why is nothing happening? You promised. So I promise to keep their promises, to make them keep their promises.
You can just walk over to my desk. You don't need to call.
It's not so
When will
easy.
this discussion continue?
When will this discussion?
Where?
Where? It will continue tonight, of course. I hope that it will continue in the Slack channel, which we should invite Sointu also to join. And then between these parties, like University, Business Tampere, TAMK, developers, by email, so that you exchange emails and start whatever ideas you have. Always contact the other parties and ask, like, would you like to join in? At least get started from there. So let's continue organically here among us in every meeting. Bring this topic up. How can we collaborate? And we are running out of time. We need to let Marina take the stage. But I'd like to thank you all for joining in. Thank you guys for joining in, and let's give a big hand for Good stuff. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
And yes, continue the discussion everywhere, all the time. And now we have the final presentation. So anyone who is interested on how to work with the publisher. There were earlier there were some presentations that talked about not wanting to work with a publisher. Then again, actually publishers are pretty good. So now we get another point of view from Colossal Order and publishers. So let's have a 5 minute. We're gonna be a bit late, but let's have a 5-minute break, and then let's get money. 2018, Marina is going to tell us about how to work with a publisher. I'm sure this is going to be an interesting final for our event. And after Marina is done, don't run away. I have a couple of things to say before we wrap up. Okay, Marina, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Vera. So basically, I'm sorry I got tied up this morning so that I couldn't make it here before the actual panel, and it was really interesting conversation, and I'm gonna basically spend a little bit of time just as a general discussion, kind of following up from the panel, because I didn't get to ask my questions from the panelists.
Nice.
So I'm just gonna smoothly start with that. So first of all, I've been in the industry for 10 years, and I came from basically completely outside of the game industry. And one thing, and please feel free to hate me, one thing that has annoyed me with the Tampere dev scene is kind of a lack of initiative. Or if it's lovely that you guys are saying that you're available. For example, for myself, I have been all the time available. I started by asking people. I went to Helsinki, I asked people, how did you start your companies? I talked to people from Remedy, Redlinks, Recoil, all the big Finnish companies. I went there and I asked, how did you do this? And they were happy to tell me how did it all start, what kind of challenges they had with their projects, if they use investors, if they use publishers. How many of you guys have gone to industry professionals and asked for help? Because if the help is available, we don't have to say, like us professionals, we don't have to be like, hey, we're here. It's the newcomers or people wanting to get into the industry, it's your job to figure things out. We can't be there so that, we can't hold your hands in the beginning. You have to take that first step and start figuring things out. And the same goes for students. There was a question about what if you're too shy that you can't apply for a job. I'm not gonna give you a job if you are not able to work. And this is brutally honest. You're no good for me in the company if you can't do the job. So show me that you can do the job, and if we have the right spot for you, you will basically get it. But it kind of sounded to me like we're talking about like building something super cool, having a hub. But now there's the question that who is actually going to be doing this concretely? Who is the person? Antti already promised kind of to be available. But who is going to do something? This is a serious question. How are we going to take those first steps? And when I started, I really put myself out there. And I'm going to be talking today about how to work with a publisher. And this is completely from my point of view. And feel free to disagree or think that she's a total ass to do things her way. But the thing is that I have figured this out by asking people a lot for advice. How did you do it? And remember, when you're asking for advice, it's not always good advice. I had I'm not going to say who, tell me that if you work with a publisher, they will take your soul. I don't know if I had a soul to begin with, but I'm still fine. So it's really something that you have to take, that it's your responsibility to figure out that if this advice applies to you, if you should follow it, or if you should find your own way. So Colossal Order's way was to always work with a publisher, and you're going to find out why. So basically, how many of you guys have played some of the, or all of the, or one of the Colossal Order games? I bet most of you guys are familiar with City Skylines, that came out in 2015, our hit game that has sold over 5 million copies. And it's not a coincidence that the game has done so well. It was a surprise, but there was a lot of work done to get to that point, that we could actually release a game that would become a worldwide hit. And we started back in 2009. As I already explained, I was a complete newbie in the industry. Luckily, I had a fantastic team, 4 developers with me, who started to work on a demo for Cities in Motion. In the beginning, there were so many questions. And as I already mentioned, I went and found the answers. And with the amazing founders of Colossal Order, we basically figured out it took us 6 months before we actually set up the company officially, just finding out like who we are, what do we want to do, why we're doing this. I was there for the money, I always have been, I'm gonna be very honest. I have never had a passion for games. I was studying automation technology at TUT, and I always thought that I would become a civil engineer, probably work somewhere in like Olkiluoto or something, because they clearly need help. But the thing is that I figured things out. I decided that this sounds super cool, I can do something for this company, I can do something for this team. And the first thing that the founders of Colossal Order really nailed was to ask me to join. Not me personally, it could have been anyone. Somebody to handle the business side, so that they could actually focus on making the game and not worry about trivial things like paperwork, setting up a company, finding publishers, finding funding. But they could focus on actually making the best possible game. And I was there. My job still is to facilitate that. As a CEO of Colossal Order, I feel that my job is to enable our game team to do the best that they can. And that's it. That's the only reason I'm there, and why they need me, or I like to think that they need me. And the guys were working on the first game, and why we chose to work on a mass transit simulator was that we always wanted to make city skylines. Well, it was actually called Colossal Cities at some point. The publisher came up with the name. The thing is that we had a dream of making a full-blown city builder. That was the thing Colossal Order was set up to do. We understood that we couldn't do that with the resources, with the team we had in the beginning. So we decided to focus on one part of the bigger game. So that was the mass transit simulator part. Cities in Motion was released in 2011. And then there was a sequel, Cities in Motion 2. And I did pitch Colossal Cities already after Cities in Motion. I talked, I have been all the time kind of like pitching the game of the city builder, and always heard you're not ready yet. Then City Skylines, actually, how we got the okay for that game was 2013, right after SimCity was released or launched, and it didn't go that great. I basically just called the CEO of Paradox, our publisher, and I asked, are we ready now? He said yes. And that's basically, and I'm not going to be focusing so much on what Colossal Order has done. I'm going to be talking more about what Paradox is, what Paradox has become, and why do we work with a publisher. It is extremely important to understand that Colossal Order was founded so that we didn't always see ourselves being indie. We wanted to keep the ownership of the company. And I feel that we can always, this sounds very arrogant of me, probably, we can always create new IPs, but we only have one Colossal Order shares that we want to keep those to ourselves, because we can always choose which project we want to work on. And that's really important for us at Colossal. We want to work on games that excite us. We don't want to work on things that an investor tells us to. So it was a really important thing for us. The false sense of independence, as I like to call it. Because there's always strings attached. You can't really be indie and work with, or you can be an indie, but you know, there's always things that you have to consider, other partners, people to consider, and it's really a collaboration. But Paradox Interactive, how many of you guys actually know Paradox? You guys, has somebody pitched again to Paradox? I have, many of them. Yeah. So Paradox Interactive is a Swedish publisher. So I'm not sure if this is more of a presentation how to work with a Swedish publisher or with a publisher. And they started as a developer. They were under 50 people when we started to work with them in 2010, and they've always made these grand strategy titles. They started actually their publishing by self-publishing the grand strategy titles because they couldn't find a suitable publisher for themselves. So they started as a developer. So it was a very surprised to find out that they actually mention us. There, partnership. In their fancy, whatever this is, which is on their website, it actually does say or mention our name. And I mean, I always knew that we were really important to them, but this important I didn't know, so I was very flattered. So if you look at how Paradox actually was in the beginning, it was very small publisher. Then they started to get a little bit bigger with, well, basically Magica was the first one that was a little bit more mainstream game for Paradox that actually succeeded. And this was the year Cities in Motion was released, so I was really lucky to learn a lot from the Magica guys as well. So we basically did press tours together, and it's something that really helped me also to understand the industry better, just to keep my eyes and ears open and figure things out. And then, of course, it doesn't say anything about, I didn't say anything about Cities in Motion games. I mean, they're good games, but let's be honest, they really didn't make that much money. Not enough money to actually get any royalties to Colossal Order, at least. But then there's City Skylines, sells 1 million units in release month. This is not true. This is the publisher making things prettier. It took 5 years, 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 it took. It was released. Everything started to implode, or it was completely insane how Paradox grew after that. They are nowadays 300 people. And I don't want to say that it's all Colossal Order and City Skylines, but let's be real, it was us. Luckily, we've also gotten a little bit of that prosperity, let's call it. But the thing is that the publisher has also changed a lot in the last 8 years that we worked with them. So 2010, when we started to work with them, they were super nice. I knew everybody there. It felt very much like a family. They always didn't know what they were doing. Now they are 300 people who don't always know what they're doing. I don't know everybody there. It gets a little bit more complicated. So it's not always good, but there is also the good thing that they have more money now. They are a publicly traded company nowadays, which makes it super difficult for us on the PC sector, because now they have this each quarter they have to make more money, and you have to understand with games like City Skylines, you release it and then you get the initial sales and then it starts to decline, and keeping that up, and with the kind of pressure that is coming from the new organization that is Paradox, it is actually giving us a little bit of a headache. So we're going to be making a lot more expansions all the time, more and more. So our latest expansion, Industries, was released just a couple of weeks ago, and you can count on us to work on City Skylines probably until we all die. So, but that's Paradox now. And but why to work with a publisher? As I already explained, somebody, or actually there were more than one people who told me that publishers are evil. I'm sorry I didn't I missed some of the presentations today, so I'm not sure if that was already mentioned to you guys as well, but it is something that, like crunch in a game company, that there's always crunch. There's also always the evil publisher. We don't have either at Colossal. We don't crunch, and our publisher is not evil. Sometimes they are just a bit clueless. But they are really not evil. We have, after Cities Skylines was released, our revenue was 15 times compared to the previous year. So we made 6.2 million in revenue in 2015 thanks to Cities Skylines. Paradox made a lot more. I'm not even sure how much money, like, really, I didn't check because I didn't really care that much. I mean, obviously they made a lot of money with that game, but so did we. And after that, people came to me and were asking, like, why did you work with a publisher? If you would have released Cities Skylines yourself, you would be super rich right now. But the thing is that, how do you think that Cities Skylines would have done if Colossal Order would have been working on that game after 2 mass transit simulators that were big in Germany? Who would have actually paid for the development of Cities Skylines? I mean, seriously, making a game like that is not, I mean, it was crazy cheap. How much, if you look at the revenue that we had the 2 years that we were actually working on Cities Skylines, it's a dirty cheap game. But we also had people that we couldn't afford having unless there was a publisher actually funding the project. Cities Skylines would have never been made if there wasn't a publisher involved. So that would be the first thing, you know, do it yourself. Well, with what money? Always there's the question, you can get investors, but as I already said, they come with strings attached. We like our company as it is. Basically, Antti Lehto, Antti Isosumpi and I, we own, I think, 92% of the company. So we get to pretty much say which projects we take on. And Colossal Cities was definitely the project we wanted to work on, and we did it. And the thing is that with the publisher's help, we were able to focus exactly on that. Think about if we wouldn't have had the publisher, we would have had to have money not only to actually develop the game, but to also market it. Marketing, PR, sales, distribution. We didn't have established connections with the game media, with the influencers, and it is possible to do, of course. But to actually say that we would have made more money with Cities Skylines if we didn't have a publisher, with the resources we had, I don't think so. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty convinced that this is the case. So I don't have to feel bad about actually working with a publisher. But the thing is that we get to focus on what we are good at. And at Colossal Order, we are good at making simulation games. And working with a publisher makes it so that we get to concentrate on that fully. And yeah, Emmy has obviously written there, they sometimes have good ideas. Yeah, they actually do. This is something that I have found extremely important, that when we at Colossal get into our kind of headspace and we are convinced that our job is flawless or the work is flawless, and we actually are super happy with the product or with the game, and then the publisher, the producer who is like, yeah, this is crashing all the time. It's really nice to have that support from there. They're sparring us, and they sometimes actually do suggest things that are really good, and sadly I can't think of any example at the moment. But the thing is that to have those outsider eyes checking on the project while it's being developed, it's really important. And you don't have to do it with the publisher. If you, for example, have some sort of like open betas or early access or things like that, getting the community involved, that would be one thing. But with the publisher, luckily, nothing is public yet, so nobody holds you, like, from the community side accountable to the possible changes that they're requesting. And then it comes to what publisher also has for us, is that if you think of Paradox Interactive, they have already started with their grand strategy titles, they had a really strong existing community and audience. So what we started with was to sell to that audience and then expand from there. So already established community really helped us to find the audience for our game as well. Or help Paradox, depends. It's easy for me to always talk we, like Colossal and Paradox, it's us. We are working on the game. But then, Swedish people, yeah. So, I have so many things to say, I hope you have all night. But I'd like to think that Swedish people are still more human than, for example, Americans, if you think about like work conditions and communication and all that. So, why did we start to work with Paradox? So, maybe it was by chance. We worked on Cities in Motion, the demo, for a year. And I went to Game Connection Lyon it was late 2009 to show the demo, and I think I approached 40 different publishers that I felt that could maybe be a fit for us, might be interested in the game. I got a meeting with 20 of them, and then 4 publishers actually wanted to keep talking with us, and one of them was Paradox. And there was a producer back then called Tom Söderlund, one of my favorite producers at Paradox. We've had a lot of them. They just keep bringing new ones. I think it's because they feel that it's nice to put the juniors to work with us because we're so easy. I just don't like change that much, so I'm always very eerie when they bring new people in. But Tom Söderlund was really excited about Cities in Motion. I remember he was literally at the booth there at Game Connection. The booths are like tiny, and then you have that screen there and trying to present, and he was just staring at the screen like this. This is so pretty. Slightly creepy also, but I mean, you know, if they got the money. So we started to talk with Paradox. There were some other publishers involved at that point still, and it took us 6 months to come up with a deal with Paradox. They were basically trying to see that if we would run out of money, so they could force us to a better deal. Luckily, our money only ran out in July 2010, and we got the deal in June, so we were fucked. But you have to always prepare for the fact that they will want to kind of test out that if you can keep things afloat when you're a newcomer. I mean, Colossal Order had 0 reputation, no track record. We were just a bunch of kids there, like, oh, we have this cool game. And luckily, we did some things right. That we got the first deal, and then we nailed it. With Cities in Motion, we delivered on time. We did it in a technically sound way. Thanks Antti Lehto, who basically programmed the entire thing for us. It was really important for us to prove to the publisher that we are good at what we do. Even if the game wasn't a huge success. I mean, how successful can a mass transit simulator really be? We're not talking about millions of sold copies, but we are talking about a project that actually allowed us to showcase that we know this, and we want to learn more, and we want to work. And now they actually really want to work with us. Paradox even mentioned us in the partnership starting in their website. Super happy about that. This means that we're now in a situation that they might even need us more than we need them. I like that position a lot. But we have also a common view with Paradox. What we want to achieve, what we want to work on. They have not pushed us to make a multiplayer for City Skylines. We're not gonna do it. City Skylines is a single player experience. It's really important for us. And they really don't object to these design decisions or the project. We get to pitch them what we want to make. And then they buy it, or they say that this is not for us. And then we can possibly work with another publisher. But for the simulation games, for cities in motion games, for City Skylines, we have found a common view on what we want to achieve, what kind of projects we want to work on. Also, Paradox portfolio was fitting to us. It's really important when you work with a publisher that you make sure that the publisher fits your needs. And yeah, in the picture it's like, you can see a Swede going to work, and there's speaker, and then there's like so many meetings. Going to Sweden, it's like they send you this agenda which has like meetings scheduled, like just meetings with different agendas and things to discuss. But the funny part is, you discuss the things and you make 0 decisions. Gotta love them. So I've been really trying to work on that with them, that we need decisions. I'm not gonna stop asking questions from them, I just push them to give me something. It's a problem, but we're working on it. And really, what are the options besides Paradox? I don't really want to work with an American company, mainly because of my own prejudice. Also because we like living, we don't want to really lose the soul and our will to live. It's something that working with a truly big publisher, you have to be, I think, even more assertive on what you want. And I think we with Paradox, we have enough of the common view that I'm pretty sure that if we would work with a bigger company that would possibly want to release a city builder that I'm not going to mention now by name, if they would say that we need a multiplayer for the game, I'm pretty sure that they would force us to do it. And those kind of publishers are not the ones that we want to work with. But Paradox, we have room to negotiate. But yeah, I kind of already teased about the annoying stuff, but it really sometimes, how can I say this in a nice way, makes me angry, pisses me off. I want to quit my job and, I don't know, start my own horse riding stable, do anything but actually work in games and work with the publisher. Like the time that they yet again bring a new PR person in who makes a trailer for, I think it was for Park Life, the expansion that came out last May, with a modded game. The whole thing was so modded that our community is like, oh my god, finally Colossal Order implemented all of these mods to the base game, that's super cool. It's like, no, it's not there. I mean, come on, they had like, the UI was completely modded, it made no sense. It was just... I mean, what do you say at that point? It's live. Then your fans are telling you like, hey, what's up with that? And it's like, yeah, sorry about that. There's this new PR guy, and there was a bit of an accident, and then the guys are like, oh, that's so sweet, good luck to the guy with his new job. And they're like, we got that covered, and then calling Paradox like, what the fuck? Yeah, things like that. Really, really shitty things have happened where something goes public that we haven't discussed. For example, they just forget to tell us something. And then we, read it. I don't know, what was the newest, I think, we noticed that, yeah, we have a Switch edition for the game that was released. I didn't know that, I knew that they were making one, but it actually came out. We noticed, I think somebody posted on our Slack channel that, ooh, there's a Switch version now, which is public and being sold. It's like, well, thanks for letting me know when that would happen. But yeah, it's really about the things that when they, they try to, or they make a mistake in a way that goes out to public, it always hurts us more. When mistakes happen that we don't have the community involved, it's not that bad. And when I mentioned about the Switch thing, it's really hard for us sometimes to accept the fact that Paradox owns the IP of City Skylines. The game was never planned to have any kind of console releases. We were always thinking purely PC. I even asked, "Are you sure you don't want this on console?" No, that's not gonna happen. That's never gonna happen. The game is now out on Xbox, PS4, and Switch, all made by Paradox and their partners. Not that I'm really like, I don't know. Not that I would have wanted to make those versions, but it would have been nice that it would have been offered to us. You know, just politely. Maybe, you know, hey console, like, Marina, what's up? We were kind of still thinking, you know, let's try the console stuff out. Would you like to work on those? Nah, that's not for us. That would have been the conversation, but I would have wanted to have it. And that's why sometimes working with publisher is really, really difficult. Really just understanding that you're working with a partner and they also have a say. And then the changing stuff. Oh, geez. So basically we've been working with Paradox since 2010. And we've had, producer is always the most important. The producer there is our guy. Our producer at Paradox. I always like to think about it like that. But we've had so many, we've had so bad ones. And then, you know, you have those good ones, and then for some reason that guy leaves and you're just like, no, please come back. Don't go to DICE. Yeah, in Sweden, Stockholm is brutal out there with the employees. They're just, you know, switching the companies all the time. Which I understand, but I just do feel that they should make an effort to, you know, that I would have those, my guys over there working with us. So I think at the moment we have, like with City Skylines, I think we just got the newest one, maybe number 8, producer number 8. I don't bother with the names anymore, it's just a number. But then again, it's part of the job, you know, people switch jobs, people get promoted. I hate when they get promoted, you know, because that means they have been actually good at their jobs and then they're taken away from it. So annoying. It's like, oh, he's not the boss of production. It's like, no, I want him to work on this project. And then, you know, holding the kind of communication or keeping the communication with this changing staff, expanding company. As I said, they used to be under 50 people, now they're over 300. How am I ever going to remember, you know, any of their names? I'm pretty bad with names already, like to begin with, and then they just keep changing and bringing more staff in. It's like, so which Niklas was this now? Like, but the thing is that there's still very important that we have the trust between even the new ones. I try to give those guys always, you know, a chance. That I don't immediately say like, yeah, he probably sucks at his job. But it is something that really stresses us out, honestly speaking. And communication. It's like all of the things that mentioned could have been, like all the mistakes, all the things that annoy us, everything always comes to the communication breakdown. I mean, it's just so important. And that's why Sweden is quite easy, because it's like from Tampere airport or Pirkkala airport, 50-minute flight to Arlanda, and then with the train there, and then I can go and, you know, yell at them on site. But it is, you know, it's not all, you know, happy and wonderful. But there's really a lot of things that can be done to mitigate the issues. And I think one of the biggest, avoid messing around. Yeah, like just be a straight shooter. Talk, communicate, tell what the problem is. When we've had the above mentioned issues, I have immediately contacted them, and sometimes I am impulsive and, let's call it, passionate. You know, in my anger, I sometimes may, you know, make somebody cry over there. It happened once. I did not know they were that sensitive, honestly. But yeah, I also sometimes have to try to be a little bit more forgiving to the mistakes that may happen. But the communication is so important. And it's really nice that we have, for example, one of our producers has worked with us since we started to work on City Skylines. And trust in the communication. It's super easy working with them. Our product manager has been for, I think, 2.5 years. So when you have those established relationship and really the feeling of a team, it makes things so much easier. And then there's the respect. I think this goes to everything you do in life, not only work, but when you have respect for others, we respect Paradox and know that they do their best to sell the game, as they have to understand that we're doing our best to make the game so wonderful that everybody will want to buy it. And now I have to say that, 5 million copies sold means basically like everybody in Finland would have bought it. We just have to expand on that to, like, I don't know, Russia and Sweden. But the thing is that it's really also about us understanding the position where the publisher is in. I think the biggest mistake people make when talking about or considering the publishers or thinking about the publishers is like they would be some kind of like evil corporation, just trying to oppress you and take advantage of you. It's really something that we have to understand that it's a joint effort, really just co-developing the game. And when we treat them, and it's there, treat the publisher as your customer. It's really like, they are your employer and your customer at the same time. It's really a funny thing, but when you treat them with respect and you make sure that you're always open, honest, you deliver on time, everything is so much easier. And then, good lawyer, not a lawyer, good lawyer. You need a good lawyer. Like when you start a company, you need a good accountant. If you don't have a good accountant, you're basically screwed. There's no future for you. It goes same with a good lawyer. When you're negotiating a publishing deal, if you say like, oh, but we can't afford it, just get one, get a bank loan, anything. It's, I would say, maximum like, it's some thousands of euros for a basic publishing deal. Don't save money on a lawyer. Never, never ever. Otherwise you end up having a publisher which actually, it actually didn't exist and I never saw the money. So it's really important, really, really, really important. And it's really also important to understand what is yours, what is the publisher's. For example, for us, we own the technology which is behind our games. We have that. We have background materials. We're not, when we sell an IP, it's not like everything is, lost to the publisher. They have the game IP, but we still have something. We have something that we can keep and keep working on and utilize in the future if we don't, even if we wouldn't continue working with the publisher on the IP that we sold. And then understanding, accepting this. So when we signed City, it was, I can't remember, it was like Cities game or whatever it was called, the city builder. So City Skylines basically. We signed it, I checked it. What if the game sells 0 copies? What if it sells 10,000 copies? What if it sells 50,000 copies, 100,000 copies, 500,000 copies? What if it sells, let's say, 10 million copies? How does that look on a paper? How does it look with the numbers? And then being happy with it. If somebody says to us that, oh, but the publisher made so much money with it, it's like, yes, we know. It's not something that makes us jealous or angry or anything of the sort, because we knew what we were signing when we signed the deal. And we're super happy with the fact that we first of all have made quite a significant amount of money ourselves, as well as we get to still work on the same game, or on the game that we're so proud of, and it's really important for us to have the creative freedom and the ownership of the product. So that's something that is actually there, that we have the first say on how the design should be. It's our pitch. It's Paradox owned IP, but it's our game in that sense that we are the developer, they are the publisher. And for this, always have a paper trail. You have the contracts. make sure that when you agree on something with the publisher, it's not over the phone. There's always a note, email, anything that you can then, refer to. If somebody says, if a publisher changes the producer mid-project, and then the new producer is like, oh, but we're going to do things like this, you can be there like, no, it says here, we're going to do it like this. So paper trail, super important. And yeah, because it's so much easier and nicer when you have partners, when you have that expertise. Publishers know how to sell games, we know how to make games, and it's really, I feel, the most important thing for a success in games, that you figure out what expertise is needed and how to utilize those. So, yeah, it's just, things are funnier in a group or something. I can't say that, sorry. But anyway, yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Marina. I think that was really, really good. And as the theme of our event was brutally honest, so thank you for finishing on that note. We still have time for questions if there's still some air or oxygen in your brain left. Hit Marina with your questions. Do you have anything on your mind?
Yeah, I usually keep such substantial presentations that there's absolutely no questions left.
Everything is answered. Okay.
I totally and I want to cover my butt with these kind of. But yeah, foolish enough from me that I didn't negotiate the ports to be ours. That's never going to happen again. I'm wiser now, but there I kind of failed in my part.
All right. From Putin invading Finland, any other topics or questions to Marina? All right, I think you really covered it, and that was a really good presentation. Let's give one more time to Marina. Thank you so much. And yes, that was basically it. We're done with today's program. I'm gonna have to check I have some notes because I wrote down stuff that I have to remember to say to you. So, first of all, thank you. It says right here. Thank you. Thank you so much for supporting the first ever event, and I think we can already say that this was a great success. At least I think so. The presentations were awesome. The atmosphere here is really like, yay, let's do it together. And the brutally honest part was, we succeeded on that as well. So yeah, there's gonna be the after party. Those who have the sauna sticker on the backside of your thing, please join to the after party. It's gonna be in Pormestari sauna in Hallituskatu 3, Hallituskatu 3. And basically you can go there around 5:30, but because there is no food there, go and eat now. This is an order. Please come at 6, because then I know that you have had time to actually go and eat and not just enjoy the liquid bread that we're going to offer at the sauna. You have the door codes in the badge, so that's good. And you can still go to the game museum until 6, so you can go eat, go to the museum, and then join the party. Couple of things what we discussed here, for example, in the panel. Please join tamperegamedev.slack.com if you haven't yet, and let's continue the discussion about the panel there. There's a question, yes?
What liquids are there in the sauna?
There are all kinds of liquids, but except very terava. So.
Is there gluten-free or something?
Sorry?
Is there gluten-free or something like that?
There's wine, cider, Longero beer. So there should be also, like, I think 3 out of 4 are gluten-free. So yes. There are also soft drinks and fish for sauna. So yeah, join the Slack and continue the discussion that we started here. I think this was a great kickstart for a new era of Tampere game dev collaboration. There was something else on my mind as well. What was that? Oh yes, the survey. So we're base. 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 Better next time. We're gonna send it to attendees and speakers. And yeah, let's make awesome game stuff happen in Tampere, right? Oh, one more thing. There's a kind of like a sister event also, the Manza Games, which you probably have heard of. It's if you haven't applied, apply. I think it's still open. So that's free event, and there's going to be all kinds of mobile game related things happening there. Awesome, cool stuff. I have to say, because we are also invested in that one, in that event. So yes, thank you so much. Go and enjoy museum food. Come at 6 to the sauna. All right, thank you.